Welkom in het Europees Parlement. Welkom bij alweer een nieuwe aflevering van Europese Gesprekken met Barbara en Gerolf. Uw duidingsprogramma om meer te weten te komen over Europa en haar werking. Vandaag met een wel zeer speciale gast van de Armeense delegatie. I'm going to try to speak your name on a proper way. I'm going to try it. Let's try it for the first time. I think it's Avetik.
That's true.
That's true. And then your family name is Chalabyan.
That's also almost true.
Almost true? Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so I said a special guest. You are a former senior partner of McKinsey, the McKinsey company. You're a public figure, I think, and you're also a politician. So you're the co-founder of the center-right, do I pronounce it well? I think...
Armenian what?
Yes, perfect. I'm going to try it. But the fact is, my question is first, do you think, with the fact that you're somebody with a public function, do you think the one is related to the other? The one thing is related to the other or not? Because in Belgium, for example, in Belgium or total Europe, when you have a public function, as a politician, it has some influence on both sides, or not politician, or...
Look, I left McKinsey in 2020.
Yeah?
And I left McKinsey specifically for returning to Armenia.
Yeah?
And entering a public space.
Yeah?
You mentioned that I'm a politician. I would say I'm an aspiring politician.
Yeah? Yeah?
I'm more of a public figure who is gradually becoming a politician, and I see the distinction between these two.
Yeah?
I have been a public figure in Armenia even before I left McKinsey in 2020.
Okay.
I was serving on boards of charities, for example. I was giving speeches, etc. And when I returned, gradually my public function has also increased.
Yeah?
But politician means participating in elections, aspiring for public office, aspiring to take a full responsibility for the public outcomes.
Yeah.
So there's a distinction.
Yep.
Every politician is a public figure, but not every public figure is a politician.
Yep.
Okay? So in that sense, all my private duties are essentially forgone.
Okay.
Not only McKinsey, but I was in other business boards, even charity boards, etc. I relinquished them all completely. Yeah. So I can solely focus on my public function.
So your party is quite new, new Armenian political formation. It emerged from a civic initiative and has, in a short period of time, developed into a broader political spectrum actor with national ambitions, I think. Could you tell us more about your newly formed party?
You properly mentioned that we have emerged from a civic initiative, which started in early 2023. And the reason we started civic initiative, we realized that the right of people in Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh will be sacrificed to, I would say, broader geopolitical necessity, as some people call it, and we decided to resist it. Okay. So we founded the initiative. The initiative started the first civic legal initiative in Armenia under Armenian legislation. If you collect 50,000 votes or signatures, you can submit a bill to the parliament. So that's what we did, and we were absolutely the first. We decided to join kind of the democratic approach to the process with the objective of defending civil and national rights. Yeah. And we did that in 2023. We collected the votes, we submitted it to the parliament. Yeah. The parliament, which was dominated by the current authority loyalists, unfortunately rejected it. And in parallel, Azerbaijan has occupied Nagorno-Karabakh and expelled its indigenous Armenian population. So by the end of 2023, we were left with a choice either to disband the initiative or try to put some new breath into this. And we did the second. We started broadening it. The initiative became first kind of a union encompassing many initiatives, kind of expanding its network, expanding its reach, expanding its breadth. And by now, we're already on a threshold of becoming a political party. We have already established one.
Yeah.
It should be registered. Hopefully, it's just a technicality. And we're also aspiring to participate in the upcoming parliamentary elections in Armenia.
Yeah, you visit these days the European Parliament with a message from your home country?
I would say we're visiting the European Parliament with a message from our supporters.
Okay.
Hardly any political force can represent the whole of the country.
Yeah.
None of you can, right?
Nobody.
But we have quite a broad circle of supporters, and we believe, yes, we can kind of bring their message
Yeah.
to Europe. Their message, effectively, our message is the following. We want to be a strong nation state. We don't want to be a battlefield between centers of power.
Mm.
We don't want to be torn apart between Europe, United States, Russia, Iran, Turkey, China, etc., right? We are living in a region which historically, not now, historically, always been in a crossroads of all those kind of influences, and they were unfortunately tearing that apart, and often sowing lots of devastation in our region. We don't want it kind of repeated. We have seen Artsakh being sacrificed to those interests, to those contradictions. We don't want to see Armenia being sacrificed to those interests. We want to see kind of peaceful and secure country. And towards this end, we would like to work very closely, very diligently, in a good faith, both with the European Union and Russia and the United States, China, India, Iran, Turkey, all who surround our region and who have stakes in the region, because they do, and we recognize this. We don't want to take parts, even being like culturally European ourselves to a certain extent. We don't want to kind of politically, especially geopolitically, throw our bet with only one center of power and then alienate or even antagonize other centers of power. Our reasoning is we need to align their interests, create a common interest in our region. That's how we can make our region secure and prosperous.
Yeah. Barbara, if you are thinking about Armenia, what do you think, what is the first thing that you think of? We talked several weeks ago about Armenia with Alan Samen, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, of course, Nagorno-Karabakh, what happened in 2023. So there were, I think, was 100,000 people who got expelled from Nagorno-Karabakh.
120,000 people.
120,000 people, even, so that's a lot.
In a single week.
Yeah, and then you should think that in a year later they organized in Azerbaijan then the climate conference. So that was for me something I couldn't believe, because when you first are expelling people out of Nagorno-Karabakh and then you organize a climate conference in Azerbaijan,
it's quite hypocrisy, right? It's quite a hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems that they are not part of any talks in the let's say the ongoing peace process.
This is another hypocrisy. There is a so-called peace process which tries to avoid Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh issue altogether, as if it didn't exist, or the people who live there don't have any rights, right? As if they should be content with a refugee status in Armenia and don't complain at all. But that's, as Gerolf often kind of mentioned, it's completely like scandalous in terms of human rights, civil rights, national rights, etc. These people live there for millennia, not just centuries, millennia. Their cultural heritage cries for itself, right? Artsakh stands now empty, completely depopulated. No one has interest actually to move there and live. Even Azerbaijanis, they don't want to live there. They believe it belongs to someone else, to Armenians. It's empty, it's depopulated, it's abandoned, it's kind of crying for help, essentially, right? And we believe that sooner or later, there should be some sort of a meaningful resolution. When land should be returned to those who belong to that land, who live there, who populated there, who put kind of breath in that land.
So the reason why I invite Avetik and his friends, I am a member of the European Parliament Armenian platform, parliamentary platform of cooperation with Armenia. The Euronest, not only Armenia, but the whole region is included there. but I was specifically there because specifically in this Euronest because of Armenia. Not only our sympathy for Armenia, but the very existence of a Christian nation in that region has a symbolic value, and our solidarity with them is a necessity for our own identity, European identity. So we have to be there, and we have to shake friendship hands with Armenians, especially when you meet Armenians who are able to go against the international consensus that Artsakh and Nagorno-Karabakh must be forgotten. No, the past is the past. You've got to integrate it into your future, and they are the only reasonable and meaningful opposition forces that still want to be on that path of history and keeping history and respecting history. Also, if it needs to have been put in the dialogue with Azerbaijan. But now violence and destruction, cannons and rockets fired on a region where Armenian people lived, chasing them away is accepted by the European Union, who normally in Hungary and everywhere say that human rights are the basis of their functioning and their reason of being a European. And now in that region, shake hands with Aliyev, who is the severe dictator, especially for Armenians in that region. So they are surrounded by Turkey, Azerbaijan, and hostile nations. And so we have to support these Armenians where we can, and especially if Armenians show up with a good vision on their own history, which they are, and formulate that like you do in a civilized, normal and pragmatic way.
Barbara, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's indeed a bit hypocritical from the European Union that they don't talk much about what's happening in your country. Okay, we have had a resolution, of course, but they don't. They talk about a lot of things happening all around the world. But when it's about Armenia, for example, they stay silent, and that's very hypocritical, I think.
Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the central word. The central word in this house, this madhouse of the European Union, hypocrisy.
Staying silent.
You can see it everywhere, and especially in this case.
Hypocrisy?
Look, many years ago when I was studying in the United States, I was a part of a discussion when a representative of a U.S. State Department, when confronted about the issue why U.S. is not pursuing rigorously the Armenian genocide recognition, he answered that we are driven by totality of U.S. geopolitical interests. That's why we are silent on this, or not kind of rigorous enough, right? So when we are kind of looking on a broad picture, the broad picture and from a European perspective, we understand Europe should definitely take care of its energy needs, for example, right? Its economic growth, its security, etc. But my own belief is that once you do this by effectively circumscribing the human rights, civil rights, the very foundations on which European Union was built, you will have kind of that boomerang returning eventually, right? You will sow kind of the seeds of discord and conflict, which will grow into something much more disastrous. Therefore, yes, like real politics is tough, and it should take into consideration many of the aspects of the reality, right? Not only the rights aspect, but also the power aspects, etc., right? But nevertheless, my own sense is that, especially for European Union, for the Union which takes pride in being democratic, legalistic, rights-oriented, etc., the approach which we have seen so far, like Ursula von der Leyen traveling to Baku and shaking hands with Aliyev, is not the one which, frankly, can inspire ourselves. I don't want to say more, but it's not inspiring. We should reasonably expect that the European Union, when looking at its broader neighborhood, like Caucasus, right, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, etc., it should take somewhat more constructive role on conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Previously, from 1994 all the way to until very recently, last year when the Minsk group was resolved, right, disbanded, there was a OECD Minsk group tasked with resolving the Artsakh conflict, right? And the European Union was part of this, represented by France. So the legal foundations of this were there. European Union, by delegating France into this tripartite leadership, effectively admitted that Artsakh issue is an issue of national rights versus rights of the states, etc. And they should find a peaceful, not forcible, a peaceful resolution based on international law. Now all this is forgotten, completely forgotten and foregone. But sorry, we have a memory. We remember that there were like Madrid Principles of 2007 presented also by France on behalf of European Union. And it cannot be like completely foregone because there is a new status quo in the region, because Artsakh is forcibly taken by Azerbaijan and depopulated. Then where is the principles? If you forgo your principles because there's a new status quo done by force, then it can be called a hypocrisy, yes.
Okay. Yeah, Barbara?
So many principles in this house are put aside.
I have the impression when it goes about Christians, it's about Christian people that got persecuted. Like, for example, we had at Easter, we also had a lot of Christian people in Nigeria who got murdered. They all stay silent about it. But when it's about, for example, Muslims or other religions, they raise their voice. So it's always when it's about Christian people, they stay silent, and when it's about Muslim people, then they raise their voices.
Okay.
This is exactly, perhaps, why what Barbara describes, why the Armenian case is so delicate, because there the European Union is in front of the choice between the Muslims and the Islamic world and the Christian, their own Christian world, which they don't consider their own anymore.
No.
The more and more the influence of Islamization in Europe, we have to pay a price. And that's the price that we pay, this reluctance to defend a Christian nation like Armenia in front of an Islamic nation like Azerbaijan.
Your visibility is increasing. How do you think about your chances in the future? What do you think?
Look, I guess the reason we stepped into Armenian politics is I believe that historically it has been very polarized. Being either like staunchly pro-Western or staunchly pro-Russian. In both cases, kind of serving foreign interests rather than kind of national interests. The reason we decided to step into this and effectively taking a heavy toll for this, right, and doing lots of sacrifices, is trying to introduce into this political spectrum the new thinking which is focused on serving the national interest. It's not easy because when you're a small country surrounded by big and powerful, the influences coming from this big and powerful are so strong that they easily overwhelm your own interest, easily, through corruption, through lobbying, through exercise of force, everything, right? So effectively becoming a defendant of like ingenious national interest is not that easy. But we believe that we should be there. We should be there. We should be there. Otherwise, we see no future for the country like ours. If it's being torn apart, it's either taken by Turkey or then taken by Russia. Loses its kind of like completely loses its identity. Especially Turks now, which became prevalent on the wake of Russian-Ukrainian conflict. They effectively demand abandoning our identity for the sake of security. And that's now the discourse in Armenia. That's now kind of the public debate in Armenia. Identity or security?
Sorry to interrupt. Can you explain that a little bit more to our viewers, very shortly?
The government in force now, the current authorities, they continuously pushing forward the narrative that we should pull back on our identity because our identity is a source of conflict with Turkey and Azerbaijan. Our very identity is a source of conflict. Let's kind of tone down our identity. Let's not provoke our neighbors because historically, whenever we provoked, we ended up losing, which is not true, by the way. But then the biggest question which we ask, if we abandon our identity, if we forgo it, then what's the reason why we're living in that country, in that otherwise challenging, difficult environment? The reason we live there, it's our connection to that country, the country given by the Creator, right? And because that country and that landscape and this cultural heritage is a source of our identity. If we abandon that identity, sorry, I would live in Brussels rather than there, right?
Yeah.
Are you saying now that the surroundings like Turkey and Azerbaijan combined impose on Armenia the choice?
Of course.
First we took Artsakh and then we'll take, or
now
you
we
should
will-
give us Armenia
Your
itself?
soil. Your soil.
Yeah, yeah.
And now we
Okay.
will take. That's exactly kind of the choice they are trying to impose. Either you give your soil, or you give your soul.
Okay.
Soil or soul.
Yeah. Well understood.
Understand.
Yeah. Scandal.
Thank you so much for your conversation with us, for your very transparent and quite emotional talk.
Sorry, I
And,
got emotional towards
No,
the end.
not emotional, but
Not
it
at
was
all.
very,
No,
very honest, very
Yeah.
human. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Appreciate the invitation.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you.
Goed, dat was het voor vandaag. Ik hoop dat u ook dit keer heeft genoten van Europese gesprekken met Barbara en Gerolf vanuit het Europees Parlement Brussel. Heel graag tot de volgende.